I have been utilizing on a daily basis for the last several years. For me, it actually started based on emotional issues and emotional roots to traumas that were in my life and preventing me from dealing with the grieving of my mother. And so I started utilizing the muscle testing for that purpose of being able to identify those emotions. And I'll give you some other reasons. Allie just mentioned some right there, and some people have been commenting about them too. And even in regard to the plastic, guys, and we're going to talk about contraindications or things that can counter your testing. But even with the plastic, if you're concerned like that, say you're in a grocery store or whatever, you don't have to be holding the item. You can speak it. You can simply say, does my body need this Solaray B vitamin, right? Solaray would be the name brand, and the B vitamin. So if you're concerned and you've seen in your testing that plastic has been an issue, just speak it out loud and your body will still know the answer, even if you're not holding the bottle in your hand. So, all right, let's go ahead and get started. This is a hot topic. Muscle testing. If you do a Google search on muscle testing, you're going to see that the majority of the items and articles that come up, especially from modern medicine and the medical realm, are going to be very, very disagreeable and even rude and mean in regards to muscle testing. They will come right out and tell you that it's unreliable. It cannot be utilized as a methodology for us to get answers to what our body needs or has already experienced. And they make fun of it. But truth be told, guys, the research that is out there based on this alternative modality is actually really, really convincing. And I think a lot of the reasons why modern medicine has found so many negative elements when it comes to applied kinesiology or muscle testing is because you have to actually believe in it. You have to believe in yourself. You have to have faith in the answers that you're receiving, that they are actually true and real. And when you're talking about somebody who's trying to prove something wrong, we already know there is no faith involved. So they're not going to get regular, valid answers. But according to the research that I've read, from the people that I've spent the most time studying through, Dr. Carolyn Mine, who most of us are familiar with because she wrote that Releasing Emotional Patterns with Essential Oils book for us. In the back of that book, there's a whole chapter on muscle testing. When you talk to Dr. Bradley Nelson, who is the creator of Emotion and Body Code, he gives a lot of information about the efficacy and the benefits of muscle testing. You just have to talk to people who actually believe in it. So we're going to go through and just kind of talk about what muscle testing is, just spend a few minutes with a little bit of background information. We've heard about kinesiology or applied kinesiology, kinesiology being the study of body movement, where applied kinesiology is basically our muscle testing, utilizing the muscle responses to get answers. So muscle testing as a whole is a tool that we use. And guys, like all other tools, oftentimes it isn't going to just be utilized by itself. If you're trying to diagnose something major, like a major deficiency or an injury or an illness, you may want to use other tools as well. You may want to get some lab work. You may want to see a so-called expert. So understanding that it's a tool, just like we have other tools that help us diagnostically, I actually call it God's easy button. For me, I believe that it was God's way for us to be able to utilize the temple that we've been given in the utmost to the highest level. Your body was intelligently created. Dr. Carolyn Mine, Wendy, MEIN, your body was intelligently created. And therefore, it knows what it needs at all times. It also knows what it doesn't have, what it's deficient in, what it's struggling from, what it's battling over. Your body has every answer. And so when we're using this tool, hopefully to find root causes, because we never want to just put a Band-Aid on something. We always want to get to the root of it so we can heal. When we're utilizing muscle testing as that tool to get to the root causes as to why an organ or a body system may be out of balance, then it's a great beneficial tool. So with that in mind, you can look at your dietary needs. Just like Allie said, I taught my kids, many years ago when I first started learning about sway testing, I taught them how to go through the grocery store and utilize their sway testing for the purpose of figuring out which foods would be beneficial. We always shop the periphery of the store because that's where the God foods are, right? Not the stuff that's processed and made by man with all the junk, but your healthy fruits and vegetables, your meats, your dairy, all of that's in the periphery. And so my kids already knew stay off the aisles. But if they're standing in the midst of the produce section, how do they decide what produce items we want that week for our salads and for our veggie part of our meals? And we can use muscle testing to determine what's best for your body at the time, because a variety is important to your bodies, especially when we're talking about pre and probiotics and a healthy gut. We need a variety of different fibers and nutrients going into our system to feed the different types of beneficial bacteria. So you can use muscle testing for dietary needs. What foods are beneficial for me? What supplements are beneficial? You can even ask questions when you're looking at a situation of not finding organics. You can ask between an organic and a non-organic. Is this apple healthy for me? And it's going to be the organic apple that you're going to get a positive response from because your body knows that the pesticides and herbicides are bad. You can do that same thing with dietary needs, looking at your supplements. How many should I take today? What time of the day will it best benefit my body to take? So you can ask for questions like that. Even within that regard, if you are trying to get rid of something in your system, maybe it's parasites or heavy metals, and you've identified that it's present, you can actually figure out from a whole listing of supplements which one may be best for you to help get rid of the parasites, what binder may work best for your body. Your body is intelligent, and your subconscious stores the mental knowledge of every single detail that your body has seen and put into the mental storehouse. And your body will never lie to you. Your subconscious will never tell you that something is beneficial for you if it isn't. And so that is super important for us when we're looking at dietary needs to know exactly what is necessary. Secondly, what about deficiencies? Is my body low in D? Listen, this would save us a tremendous amount of money in lab work alone if we get comfortable to a point where we're trusting our knowledge and we're actually able to ascertain where deficiencies may be and what we would need to take to rebuild or restore. Nerve damage, even some inflammatory issues. I've had a situation that's been going on for a while, low back and abdomen. And so I've been muscle testing just to kind of get some ideas of which direction to move in. And then I'll use some oils. And if I see benefits, then I know that this is good. If not, I go back to the chalkboard. So there's a lot of things that you can do for this. Chemical imbalances, right? So hormonal issues and things that your body is dealing with, you can muscle test. And the biggie, which I told you was my primary reason for starting with muscle testing, is emotions. Getting to the emotional roots of the traumas that are left in your body, because more than 75 to 90+% of the time, our physical ailments are a result of an emotional trauma unreleased, undealt with. So muscle testing works because your bodies are electrical in nature. All of us have all of that electrical nervous system circuitry running all through our bodies, and your muscles are actually able to indicate strong and weak responses. A strong response being a positive, healthy response, a weak response being an unhealthy or a negative response. And it's your muscles that do that responding. Your body is either running towards, drawn to, or fleeing from the things that it knows are not helpful. And guys, that doesn't mean it has to be all bad things, right? If my body does not agree with nightshades and I muscle test myself about tomatoes and red peppers and things like that, my body's going to say, even though it's a healthy food for someone else, it isn't a healthy food for you. And then as I heal, that may change over time as my body and my gut begins to heal. So it's very beneficial in that way to utilize muscle testing for any of the things I've just mentioned. This muscle testing is the only way to literally ask your body what the problem is and what the cause is. And it's accurate at least 98% of the time when the muscle testing is performed correctly. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. It was introduced by a chiropractor, Dr. George Goodhart Jr. in Michigan back in 1964. And I think this is another part of why there's so much controversy. Because, guys, a lot of people in the medical community believe that chiropractic is quackery. They don't believe that chiropractic care is actually a beneficial medical um, uh, technique. And the way I know that is that when COVID happened, do you know who got shut down? Chiropractors. Chiropractors all over the US were shut down and told to close their offices because they were not considered to be like primary care. They weren't important like a doctor was. So when we're talking about a country that believes chiropractic, which is steeped and proven to be true and beneficial for our health and wellness, and our country still doesn't even believe in it and still believes that it's lunacy, of course, a technique that's utilized very frequently in chiropractic is not going to be a technique that the medical community is going to give much credence to. And so, again, as you see the negativity that's out there, you have to put on your common sense shoes, maybe put the oil on, and utilize the knowledge that, hey, God made our bodies a lot smarter than these people ever could be. And he had to have had a way for us to get those answers. And again, as I said, the easy button from God is that muscle testing. Several hundred studies have shown that pain and illness in the body produces muscle weakness, and it can be an indicator then that is very useful as a diagnostic tool. And so again, unless that just doesn't happen, which we know physiologically it's true that when there's illness and negativity, your muscles get weakened. When there's positive health, your muscles are stronger. Guys, I don't really care what. The world says, I believe in applied kinesiology, and I know that it works because I've seen it work over and over and over again. For every action in nature, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Thank you, Sir Isaac Newton, for that statement. This is muscle testing. Every time we apply an action to our bodies, there's going to be an equal and opposite reaction. So although it's not supported by modern medicine experts, we know that your cells in your body know the entire history that they have ever been through, the details of every face you've ever seen. So if your cells know the history, then they also know exactly what it's going to take to bring healing to your body. This is intelligent design. This is intelligent design. Okay, so enough for the background. Like I said, you can dig deeper and find anything you want, positive or negative, about the practice itself, the techniques. But I really want to spend our time showing you how to do the techniques. So I want to mention to you first, I already mentioned Dr. Carolyn Mine. And you can utilize her book in the back. She has pictures of the different techniques so you can see them. I mentioned Dr. Bradley Nelson, the creator of Emotion and Body Code. On his website, which is discoverhealing.com, you will find videos, you will find pictures. He has tremendous information on muscle testing. And truthfully, he's going to teach you how to do emotion code. And I believe every single parent should know how to muscle test and emotion code their children. I'm going to tell you my super funny story about muscle testing right now, and then I'm going to show you the different techniques because it won't take long to show them. But when I first learned how to muscle test, I have some kids who were like me. I grew up and I enjoyed lying. I did not want to get in trouble for things, but I like to do things I wasn't supposed to do. So with that in mind, my kids got it. My kids are really good at it. And so when I learned muscle testing, I realized that I could catch them all in their lives. And so I came home, I told them all to stand up, and I started asking each of them different questions. And you were watching them swaying backwards and forwards, and I was catching them left and right. And then it hit my teenage son, and he said, "Wait a minute, what are you doing?" And I said, "I'm muscle testing you. Your muscles always give the correct answer, either a yes or a no." And I said, I'm done with your lies. So when I ask you a question from now on, if I think you're not telling me the truth, I'm going to make you stand up. And so we were actually together like 3 days later, and he lied about something. I knew he had lied about it. And so I said to him, I was like, are you telling me the truth? And he said, absolutely. And I said, stand up. And as soon as I said stand up, he said, wait. I'm not telling you the truth. So every parent should know how to muscle test, if nothing else. I will tell you though, if you have a child who is a little bit on the sociopathic stage, I'm not making fun, right? I had my number 4 child battled with some sociopathic tendencies and things. They were actually inherited. It's a big long story, but anyway, he could convince himself that his lie was true, and so he was a hard one. So I'm thinking that all of the serial killers that are out there, and maybe some of our Marines that can pass a lie detector test, even with lying, maybe muscle testing won't work the greatest for them. You have to believe in yourself, and you have to believe that the answer that your body is giving is true. People who try to trick it, not necessarily a good thing. Okay. So, you know what? Before I show you the different techniques, let me just go through the issues that affect muscle testing in a negative way. Number 1 is dehydration. If you or your recipient are dehydrated, that will definitely affect your muscle testing results. Secondly, too much pressure. If you're applying too much pressure as you're doing the testing, then that also will give you inaccurate results. If the recipient has a misaligned spine, sometimes that can affect your muscle testing results. And then obviously, if there are trapped emotions, now all of us have trapped emotions, but if there's like some major body imbalances coupled with those emotions, that can also be an issue for getting good, positive results from your muscle testing. And then the final one is lack of confidence. Just like I said, when you've got people trying to prove muscle testing wrong, like the modern medical community does, when you've got someone who's constantly questioning, well, I'm not sure if that was a yes or not. Well, you're not going to get good results. You have to have faith in what you're doing. And that's why I would say, when you see these different techniques, and there's more than even I'm going to show you, there's so many different ways, but when you see these different techniques, you have to believe that your body is giving you that yes. I spent so much time just knowing what my yes felt like. I needed to know what my yes felt like so that the no would be so obvious. And so I want to encourage you, after you see these different techniques, I really want you to be practicing them, really knowing what your yeses feel like. So we're going to start with what I think is the easiest one, which is known as the sway test. Okay. And so if you're standing still, just with your feet kind of shoulder width apart, your body naturally just kind of moves and sways. If you're kind of paying attention at all with me, your body is naturally going to move and sway forward and backwards. It's just gravity and how your body works. But if you begin to ask yes questions, or questions that should give you a yes, all right, like obviously my name is Christy. If you hopefully can see that little bit of a sway forward, a positive response is a movement forward. Okay, it's the strengthening of the muscles. If I say my name is Steve, I'm going to sway backwards. I almost always lose my balance when I get a no. And so I'm just going to go through a series of definite yes, definite no questions. And each time I sway, I'm feeling for that. Is this drawing me forward, or is this repelling me away and pushing me back? Okay. So that forward strength for the sway test is going to be your yes. Okay. And that at that point, you're going to want to wait between your questions. Don't be like a firehouse of questions, because you've got to give your body a chance to come back to central, to stable. So when I'm in the grocery store, or my kids are in the grocery store, and they see something that they think would be beneficial for them, maybe it's some organic broccoli, they pick up the broccoli, and maybe we've been eating broccoli like crazy. Maybe we've had broccoli every day. This is me. I tend to eat the same things over and over again. But then maybe my body doesn't want broccoli right now. So I might get a no. Even though broccoli is beneficial for me, it isn't what my body wants and needs right now to meet its current nutritional state. So that's where that sway test works really well. It's a great one if you're testing someone, right? If you're asking the questions but it's them that needs to be getting the testing, then you can actually have them stand in front of you. And as you ask the questions or make the statements, then that person can do that swaying as well. Okay. All right. So the next one is the arm extended. This is also one that we typically do when we're working on another person. So they would extend their arm and you would be usually you would have a hand right up here. And then right below where the wrist bone is, you're going to just put 3 fingers gently or 2 fingers gently. And you would just apply a little pressure. The problem with this is that sometimes their arm can get tired. So if you're asking a lot of questions, that can get a little overwhelming for them. So very similarly, then they can kind of tuck their arm into the hip and let their hip be a little help. And you can do the pressing right here. So you'd get a yes would be strong, where a no is going to move. A yes is going to be strong. Okay, I'm applying that pressure. Yes, no. Yes, no. Okay. And so I know the question that comes up a lot is, well, how do you know for sure that it's a yes or a no? You're going to feel it. You'll feel tension. Obviously, if you're like the Hulk trying to push their arm down, yeah, it's going to move no matter what, but you're not trying to force it. You're just using a little pressure until you get resistance. If it resists right away, it's a yes. If it doesn't resist right away and it's weaker, that's your no. Okay. So that's that arm extended. Okay. Then you can do ring and ring. All right. So you've got 2 rings that are made and joined together. If you see them this way. All right. And ring is great. You can do little fingers to your thumbs. You can do middle finger. You can pick whatever finger you want. I like to do middle fingers, but some people struggle with that. If you're very strong, you might question your results. So maybe do the pinky finger with the thumb because it can't be as strong. Okay. But that way you're just going to ask that question, Christy, Steve, Christy, Steve. Okay. And it's not that I'm gripping harder on the yeses. I'm trusting what my yes feels like. So as soon as I hit that resistance, I know that's a yes and I can keep moving. When I'm doing techniques like this, I can ask questions a little bit more quickly versus with the sway. All right. Another one is making a ring. Again, you can pick whichever fingers you want. I usually do middle to thumb, and then breaking through the ring. You can actually do this on another individual. They can make the tight ring and you can get the yes or the no. The no, those fingers are not going to stay together. They're just going to break and allow that finger to come straight through. But with a yes, it's going to be nice and tight, no breaking. Okay. And then we also have the thumb and the pointer squeeze. And so the yes would be here. The no is going to squeeze together. All right. So these are the ones that are going to be strong. And these are the ones doing the squeezing. So if I say Christy, there is no give, guys. There is no give at all right now. But if I say Steve, it's very easy for me to pinch those 2 together. Okay. There is another one about rubbing your fingers together like this. When you can either do it in a circle, you can go back and forth. You could do pointer finger, middle finger. I actually like my middle finger better. The smooth would be a positive. If it's a negative, it gets sticky. So I want you to watch my fingers, okay? Christy, Steve. Do you see how it's sticky? Christy. Okay, so it's just very, very different how the different techniques work, but the goal is to find one that you prefer. As I said, there are so many different ways. There's one called falling log, but you can also use a tool. Okay, and this will be the last thing that I share with you until I tell you how you can test on different people. This is known as a pendulum. Any gemstone hanging on a sterling silver chain can be utilized in that regard. I have quite a few of them. When I go to gemstone stores, I just pick up ones that I think are pretty. I've actually used my gemstone necklaces before if I was out and didn't have a pendulum with me. Again, the pendulum is reading your muscle response. So a strong response for me comes out as a little round circle, Christy, Steve. And do you see how that changed? And that negative just wags back and forth. So you can also use tools if you are questioning your physical testing. The tool is one that's very easy for people to ascertain and say, oh, I see that difference. I can tell right there. Now, guys, a couple of things to remember. We're not making predictions, okay? God says man doesn't know what tomorrow brings. And so we're asking questions that your body already knows the answers to from things that have already occurred. You're getting information from the past, okay? It's not something that you're going to be questioning. Am I going to have a baby next year? Am I going to get a raise, right? So it's super important for us to understand we're not making predictions. That's where I think sometimes things can cross a line. We're getting answers that your body is already wise to with that intelligent design. Okay. So that's important for us to remember. And then we also have to understand that as energetic beings, our energy knows no boundaries, no boundaries. So I can test on myself. All of those techniques I just showed you, I can use to test just on myself. But I can also test other people, and I don't have to be in their presence to be able to test them, because energetically we feel things across the miles. I'm going to finish my part right here with this one little testimony, and then if we have questions, and plus somebody else has a question as well. But my son lives in Colorado. I live in North Carolina. One evening I woke up at like 2:33 in the morning. I had an ominous feeling that something was wrong. And I didn't want to wake him up in case he was asleep. So I shot him a text. I figured if he was sleeping, he'll text me in the morning. It'll be no big deal. I texted him, and within seconds, he responded and said, can I call you? So I got up out of bed so as not to wake my husband. And I went in the other room, and he had a really serious decision to make. And it was really weighing heavily on him to the point of tears. And so that's energy, guys. That's energy transferred across the miles. I was not with him, had not seen him in weeks. And yet I intensely felt that there was something going on. You've experienced this in many ways. You've walked into a room and you felt safe or not safe. You've been around people, and without anybody even saying a word, you know who you'd feel comfortable talking to and who not. There is that energetic instinct that we have placed inside of us for our children, for our people that we love, but really for everyone that's around us. That's why you have the ability to do energy work and energy healing type work, even across thousands of miles. And so you have the ability with muscle testing to test on yourself. You can also test directly on the person. And you can also test on yourself for a person. So you act as a surrogate, in other words, like you're stepping in for them. And so it's really, really cool. Yes, proxy and surrogate. Thank you, Teresa. All right. I'm not sure if Stacy's gal is on and she wants to jump on and share some things as well. But we definitely will also open up for some questions if people have questions. Allie, is she here?
Yep. I was just waiting for her. There she is.
Awesome.
Hi guys, is my sound okay? I just have this propped up on my laptop, so hopefully the sound is fine. I'm good. Okay, awesome. Hi guys, I'm Rochelle Nelson, and I'm a mind body spirit release practitioner, and muscle testing is incredible. And I just wanted to share just a few things to add on. All that was amazing, and I learned some stuff. There's always more to learn about this. First, I want to tell you guys a story, because I think this is like why I'm so passionate about learning it for myself and also like doing this for other people. My husband was diagnosed with narcolepsy. We went to a narcolepsy specialist. He walks in the room. First thing he says is, well, there's nothing you can do naturally for this, and there are 3 drugs you can choose from. And he goes through the drugs, and the third one is a date rape drug. And I'm like, no, hell no, not doing that. And I am so thankful that the Lord led us to an incredible doctor who is very skilled at muscle testing, like extremely, extremely skilled. And he figured out that my husband had babesia, which is very rare. And it is a red blood cell infection caused by a tick, usually born from parasite. Or no, sorry, switch that around. The red blood cell infection from parasite, usually from a tick. And this is a kind of thing that's very hard to get a test for. Usually the tests are terrible. And so like it would have been impossible to figure this out otherwise without muscle testing. So muscle testing, I am like all in all the way. He figured out my husband had babesia. He gave him some protocol energy medicine within 3 months. He had no signs of narcolepsy and it was incredible. So I'm like all for it. So I'm really thankful that I've learned how to do it. And one way that I've used it is for my kids, like Christy said, like knowing how to muscle test for your kids is amazing. Last week, I had a daughter of mine that kept throwing up, and I would muscle test and I'd be like, she has a stomach bug. It said no. I'm like, okay, like what is going on? So finally, I just figured out, okay, I need to ask a different question. I need to figure out like what allergy is going on. Figured out that her body does not want almonds right now at all, which of course we've been eating a lot of. And she's one of those, my husband and her are both the kind of people that if they eat too much of something, they will eventually get an allergic response to it. So anyway, so we figured that out. She hasn't had stomach aches. She hasn't thrown up because now we know, don't give her almonds right now. Give her body a break and hopefully at some point it'll come back. But anyway, so really the key with muscle testing is learning to ask good questions, make good statements. So if you make a statement, yes or no response, you just like keep digging, like ask more questions. And that's the cool thing. I'm so having so much fun experimenting with this myself, just being able to figure out how to ask questions even better. And one of the things that you can do when you're looking at supplements, for example, you can ask like a percentage. You can ask, how beneficial is this for my body? Is it greater than 80%? Is it greater than 90%? Is it greater than 95%? You can get a yes or no response, which is super helpful when you're trying to narrow down what things you want to try. And you guys, like Young Living supplements are like almost always in the 90% range. And I will muscle test other supplements that look quality and they're like 50% beneficial or they're 24% beneficial. Okay, so we have amazing supplements, guys. If you're not using Young Living supplements, you're missing out. But definitely you can muscle test for them. And figure out which ones are going to be the most beneficial for you. Right now, I am working on getting rid of parasites, which I muscle tested that I have. And so that has been really key in being able to be like, okay, which supplement should I take for this? What oils does my body want for fighting these? And there's so many options out there, right? You could be like overwhelmed. And one of the things that I know my body is struggling with right now is my detox pathways are like super jacked up and they're not happy. And so I was like, okay, well, I've heard about castor oil. So I muscle tested myself, like, do I want castor oil to help my liver? And I said, yes. So I bought castor oil. So that's super helpful for knowing like, yes, this is what my body wants. So you're not wasting money on stuff that is actually not what your body wants because everybody's body is different. Another thing that was really helpful for me when I was first starting to learn how to do muscle testing was like, show me a yes. You can literally say those words, show me a yes, show me a no. So that's super helpful. Another one is the polarity check, which so the front of your body is positive and the back of your body is negative. So I'm going to have to show you this with my one-handed technique. But when you're doing this with other people, you can do this, and I find that it works better than just having them say like the wrong name, because they can like try and trick the muscle testing, but they don't really know what's going on. When you do this, is tell them to put the palm of their hand on their forehead, and the palm of their hand is considered the back of the body. So this is negative, this is positive, so it creates a circuit, so it should be strong. So right now I'm strong, okay? And you can do this with their hand out, right? And you should have a strong response. And then you have them flip their hand. So now we have positive to positive. So when I'm trying to hold I can't, like it goes down. I cannot keep a strong finger. And so when you have their arm out, you'll get a good, like this is their no response. Now, sometimes they can be switched. And that's like when their polarity is switched. And so there's a couple things you can do. I haven't had this happen very often, but I did have this with a client last week, and it was very interesting because we got her polarity to switch back to where it was supposed to be. And then I would do a clearing on her, and suddenly she would be back to being the opposite again. And I was talking to my mind body spirit release practitioner instructors, and they were like, well, you might need to clear dysresonance with herself. So that was really interesting, and that's what I'm going to try with her. But I had to become proxy. I had to muscle test myself proxy because I was getting the opposite answer with her because her polarity was switched. But there's a couple things you can do if you are muscle testing somebody and their polarity is switched. If they are too strong, like you cannot get them to go down when they should have a no response, you can use your hand like this, kind of like a C cup, and you can go down the body, and that brings the energy down so that you can actually get a yes, no response. If they're too weak, somebody said in the comments, hydrate. Yes, 100% hydrate if they're too weak. And then you can also swipe up the body like this, just 3 times up the body, and then you should get a good strong and a good weak response. And then if it's reversed, so if you're doing this and they're going weak, but they should be strong, which is happening to my client, you can do cross crawl. So like having different parts of your body. So like, you have your right arm going and your left leg. So you're trying to get the brain to use both sides of the body. And that can help with reversing polarity. Or you can take your fingernail bends and you can go behind the ears like this. And that should also help reverse polarity. Another thing that is really helpful, thank you. Yes, crossing the midline, exactly. Another thing is that words have frequency. So I actually use charts in my muscle testing a lot, and I will put my finger on a word and it will give me a yes or a no response. It's pretty cool. So that really helps. Yes, I literally got Queen of Thrones. That's the one I got because I was like, I just need something that's going to work really well. And I needed a castor oil pack that was free of, parabens and stuff like that. And so I just got it today. So I have not done it yet. But you can drizzle like a capful of the castor oil on top of your pack and then tie it around your liver. And it's supposed to help with detoxing your liver, and it should help with lymph, which I really need right now. But also I know that it's like 85% emotional, my lymph stuff that's going on. So that's the other cool thing is you can muscle test and ask like, how much of this is emotional? How much of this is physical? How much of this is spiritual? And that gives you a good indication of like where to start with addressing the thing, because you can address something all day long with the physical things, which we have the tools for with Young Living, right? And they're incredible. But as I figured out last year, a lot of the stuff that I was dealing with was way more emotional than it was physical. And when you have emotion blocks in the body, that massively decreases the body's ability to heal. And it actually wears down those organs, which is why then later you have the physical symptom because the organ is not functioning properly because it has emotions stored in the organ. And so, a lot of the stuff that I had happening last year with adrenal fatigue and edema and all this stuff was more emotional than physical, but we still have to like do both. Like we still like, especially like adrenals, for example, if your adrenals are worn out because you have emotional root in your adrenals, you have a spiritual stronghold in your adrenals, which I had, and they're not